Good morning and welcome to A Better World with Julann and Fran. I'm Julann.
And I'm Fran. And today we have a very special guest, Wendy McNamara, whom I've known since the early 1980s. And Wendy, welcome.
Thank you so
Welcome,
much.
Wendy.
Just so everyone knows, Fran and I were both about 3 when we met.
Yes.
There you go. Yes, and Wendy, I know that you do a lot of things to make the world a better place. Which one of those things would you like to discuss today?
I'd like to talk about how when I moved from Brooklyn up to the suburbs, I found a whole new world in volunteerism.
Okay.
Nice.
Um, so I was working full time when I was pregnant with my first child, Matthew. We chose to leave Bay Ridge in Brooklyn, where we were living, to move to Hopewell Junction. And when we moved up here, I thought I was just going to take a 6-month leave from my job and get childcare and go back to work. That wasn't what wound up happening because I couldn't bear leaving him for 14 hours a day. But after a while, it became obvious because I was used to interacting with 60 people a day on a regular basis because I was in marketing and public affairs that I needed something to spark my interest. I just didn't know what. And of course, I wasn't ready to go back to work. My husband was commuting to the city. And I happened to run into our town supervisor at the time. His name was Peter Edema, because I had an idea about having a playground in my neighborhood. Now, Fran, you know this. Julann, you know this too. If in Brooklyn, if you walk around every 3 blocks, there's a school with a playground. Where I was in my town, I had to go to a different town to find an adequate playground for toddlers. There was a
Mhm.
playground in town, but it was not toddler friendly. So when I went into the town supervisor and I said it would be nice to have a playground, we have an empty field right down the hill from me next to the recreation field. He said, "Why don't you make an appointment and come see me?"
Nice.
So, having appointments, I decided it would be a good idea to bring an itinerary because I had some other questions as well. So I went with my little carefully typed up itinerary. I was used my computer, printed out the itinerary, and I wanted to know about having a playground for young children in my neighborhood. I wanted to know about the garbage. There wasn't much, but because it's a nice area, you can tell when there's garbage all over the place, what we could do about it. And also, I wanted to know about why the kids in our particular side of town went to a different school than all the other kids. And Fran, we've talked about this in Brooklyn. We had interesting ways people were districted into schools, and a lot of it didn't make sense.
Mm.
Remember, we were talking about this. I didn't understand why you, who lived right near one school, had to pass that school to go to another school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's what this was like too. So I had my little meeting with him, and he said to me, "Okay, so with the garbage, we'll get you gloves and bags if you want to organize something to pick up the garbage with your neighbors, and we'll be happy to help you in any way we can." And with the schools, I got another guy. I'll give you his phone number. And as for the playground, we have a grant. So I
Nice.
understand you have a background as a project manager. If you would like to manage the project of the playground as a volunteer, you can have that playground down the hill. So
Great. That was
I,
great. He put a lot of faith in you for not knowing you at all. That was just
not
so
knowing me at all, but maybe there was something about just the way I approached it. But you know something? The fact that he had faith in me inspired me to really rise up.
right.
Having this one individual town supervisor could have just said, she's got her little children, she got this, she got that. Let's just be nice and say, we can't do it. Instead, he said, well, yeah, if you want to take ownership, why not?
Nice.
So, long story short, I wound up dealing with playground companies and getting quotes and running the quotes by the financial people in town. I I specifically, it's right across the street from the firehouse, the Wickeby Firehouse, which two of my brothers-in-law were very active in. So as a tip of the hat to the firehouse, made sure the colors were yellow and red. There was a toy fire engine children could ride on, and the color of the playground was the primary colors. It was red and yellow and blue and green,
Nice.
But basically, totally tip of the hat, firehouse right across the street. And when it came time for the groundbreaking, because we also had some donations. I got toy shovels, and we all posed with the toy shovels.
Oh, that's nice.
And the assemblyman who got the $7 million grant is 6'7".
Oh,
So
wow.
to see him with the shovels was kind of hilarious.
Oh,
But
nice.
and then a year later we did a dedication ceremony, and I wound up doing a phase 2 of that playground. But that was so successful that the town supervisor had introduced me to the town recreation commissioner. And within that year, the town supervisor called me and said, "Hey, really great job, Wendy. And we have an opening on the recreation commission. We'd like you to join."
Oh,
Excellent.
cool.
So
Love to hear that.
I wound up being on the town recreation commission for 7 years, and in that time, the town playground I originally went to that was too dangerous for my younger children. They wanted a complete redesign. So I wound up working with the same companies I worked with on the playground near my home, and that was a much bigger project. And once again, I was dealing with quotes, I was dealing with procurement, I was all as a volunteer. But and then I came to them with other playgrounds I thought they should, and on the recreation commission, we had other playgrounds I wound up suggesting they upgrade. So I wound up working on 7 of them. And
Wow.
it just gives you such a feeling if you know something, you feel so helpless sometimes. You feel like you can't make an impact. And the fact that And I had a really grumpy neighbor who was like very crotchety. But all of a sudden, one day in my mailbox, there was an article in the newspaper about me, and she put it there with a nice note.
Oh, see,
Oh,
very nice.
So the feeling that I got was any human being, if you persist and go forward, it's not a guarantee, but there's an opportunity for you to make a palpable difference
oh, yeah.
in the community around you. And the first time I saw a little kid on the playground, not one of my own, but another child laughing,
Oh,
it gave me the greatest feeling, because to me, playgrounds and libraries, and I worked for the Poughkeepsie Library for a while, are the great equalizer.
yeah, I
Anybody
agree.
can use them. It doesn't cost you anything. If you need to stop off and do something and you have, half an hour to kill, or you just want the kids to wear themselves out or enjoy themselves, that's the great equalizer. So for me to be able to wind up working on those 7 playgrounds was amazing. And then remember I told you about when he said, "Well, I can't help you with the school district, but I know a guy."
Yeah.
The guy I called wound up putting me on the redistricting committee.
Oh, great.
Nice.
And
That's really good.
it was very hard, but redistricting committees are different. Like playgrounds, everyone's happy with you.
Yeah,
Redistricting committees, if you go on the committee and then you're looking at your own issue, but if sometimes to solve your own issue, it impacts other children in other schools who wind up having to move
Right.
too. So it was really an awakening to me about the fact that you can't just consider what it is that you're so determined has to happen for your sense of justice. Because I knew us moving the kids to a school closer to home so they could be with other kids that they'd wind up in school with was the right objective. But then you have to look at, who am I affecting?
yeah,
How can I mitigate the damage to this to the other kids? How can they not have to move, or what compromises can be reached so that everyone has some sense of, yes, this is going to work for me. And we wound up, after a year of having parents come to the schools, to the school board meetings, we wound up getting the kids redistricted.
okay.
And then the parents, my child wasn't in school yet. He was 4, Matthew, my oldest. So the parents who I had met from the PTA to come with us to the meetings turned around and said to me, "Hey, we need a secretary at PTA next year. You're coming to the school. You want to come?"
Ah,
And then my friend Maria, whose son was already in school, said, "We need to raise money for a playground here. Wendy, you want to co-chair the playground committee?" I know
Nice.
you know all the manufacturers, Wendy. I know that
yeah,
what we can do.
yeah.
So what wound up happening is that I then was the secretary of the PTA, drafted before I went to the PTA meeting before Matthew was ever in school, was elected, was secretary, and also Maria and I co-chaired the playground committee, and we wound up going out and raising $58,000.
Wow,
Wow.
And
That's nice.
our big goal was, let's not hit the parents up. Like we had one
Right.
You know, it was open. If you want to contribute, great. But there were other schools that went and said, we need every parent to give $100. No, no. We
Right.
said, we're going to have a drive for 5. Can everyone stick $5 in an envelope? Somebody stuck 4 quarters in the envelope, but we were thrilled. It didn't matter.
Right. Anything.
But what we wound up doing was, I can ask anyone for anything as long as it's not from me.
Yeah.
Right.
So we wound up going out to the community, to the different stores, to the different manufacturers, to the builders, to everyone we could think of to, you know, make the pitch of, hey, can you support us? And we wound up making enough money. And the big thing was when we went and said we want to do a playground committee, everyone said, we've had playground committees.
Mm.
We had one. It didn't work. It didn't happen.
Oh,
We
great.
worked for 3 years. We wanted a map of the USA on the back. It didn't happen. So for us, the big thing was, okay, we've raised $5,000 the first year. You know, we did candy sales, we did all those things. Let's put something in. So we got a slide in. You know, we found something that we could use the money we'd raised. We got the slide in. And once people saw, they came back to school and saw, oh, wait, there's a slide. Then they were more compelled to do something. The teachers donated, said instead of giving us mugs for the holiday, if you can donate to the playground committee in our
That's
honor, we would love that.
that was nice.
And that was great. And we had teachers on the committee. So like we had buy-in. We had the gym teacher was on the committee. The school secretary who'd been there for 40 years and was fantastic and a wonderful resource, but who you really needed buy-in from was on the committee. We worked it out that we had the buy-in, and then what happened is as people saw things happening, then we had enough to put in a whole big other section, and then we had a dedication ceremony, and we invited all the donors. And we honored them, and we had certificates, and the donors will come up to us and say, this is great. Come to us again this year. We can give you more.
Oh,
But
nice.
that's how it
Excellent.
went from, let's say, 5,000 to 27,000 to 58,000 as people, once they saw the progress, got really excited and the donors came back and gave us more.
That's
So
nice.
I guess what I'm trying to say, because I could talk about a lot of things, and Fran and I are always talking about the big thing, which is that put as much positive energy into the world as possible. Don't expect anything back. It may not come back from the person you gave it to, but it will come back.
Right.
So, I mean, but that's kind of what started really this whole thought of altruism through volunteerism, through time, you know, and little. So I told you about the redistricting committee, and we were successful. I wound up being on a lot of committees. I went from PTA secretary 2 years later. They drafted me to be PTA president
Oh,
because
nice.
that's what happens is
Yeah.
because they see.
You
But
can get
then
stuff done.
I wound up running for the school board. So I started on the school board for 3 years.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very nice.
but that's hard because that's not an easy job. I give it to anyone who's a trustee on a school board. That is just tough. It's just really
Right.
tough because
Right.
there's a lot of
Right.
competing interests. And what you have to do is you have to say, you know something, I'm not going to run for, I think anyone in office, you have to think about, I'm not going to run for reelection. I'm not going to worry about that. I just want to get as much done good as possible and learn to work with other people, even if I don't agree with them or they make me crazy. Work with them, listen to them, listen to the people, you know, who you don't agree with. Take it in, understand where they're coming from. You may never agree with them, but there may be a place in the middle where you can meet them on things that are really important. So I guess, you know, when you asked me at the beginning of this, Fran, you know, what do you want to talk about? I want to talk about the fact that I did not think when I started doing this, when I started volunteering, I never thought I knew I was very capable, I was very good at work, but I never knew that I was capable of just going out there and just figuring out what was needed and then helping to make it happen.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. Giving to others awakens yourself. It causes you to learn about yourself.
it really does. And but the other thing that it does is so cool is like because I was designing all these playgrounds, as my kids got a little bigger, they would help me. I'd say, Brian, go pick out a piece. They
Mhm.
would come to the dedication ceremonies.
Nice.
You
They
know,
invested. Yeah.
I wanted them because mommy was spending so much time looking at these pictures. I actually wanted to know what they would like. And kind of,
Yeah.
because then it would be so much fun for them. Because then when the play will go up, I take a picture of them with the piece they said this.
Shows. Yeah.
Obviously, it had to be something I thought would be good too.
Right.
But I would take a picture of them with, when there were some newspaper articles done and my kids are in the pictures.
Oh, nice.
And Brian's chosen to go into public service.
That's
And,
great.
and one of the biggest compliment he ever gave me is he's like, you know who you are, Mom. You just want to help everyone.
Yes.
And that was just such a, for him to recognize that was just such a huge compliment.
Ah,
Do you have any questions for me? I'm
would you
sorry the picture didn't work.
That's okay.
Well, I can assure you, Wendy's quite a lovely woman. Um, but do you feel, would you recommend volunteering for anyone?
I really would. I would say concentrate on what you're interested in. To be honest, I didn't know recreation was what I was interested in. But concentrate on what you're interested in, but also look for the need.
Yeah.
Look
Right.
for what's
Exactly.
there's a children's book you read your children to help them with their processing. It's called What's Missing.
Okay.
Look for what's missing. If there's something you see, if you have a concern with your school district or with your school, rather than just complaining about it, see what you can do, how you can get involved. Districts have committees for all sorts of things. Call the school district to say, hey, I want to step up. I want to serve on a committee. Are there any, what do you have committees right now? Go, if you haven't gone to a PTA meeting and you still have kids, if you still have kids in school, go to a PTA meeting. I know in Dutchess County, we actually have, for retired people, we have a volunteer corps.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I think
That's nice.
do they have them down by you, Julann?
Yeah, they do. They have it. I live in Rockland County. We're
Yeah.
in New City, and they have the districts, the school districts are great, and there's a lot of committees. And when my kids were younger, I was involved in them. My kids are older now, and I'm doing things with my grandchildren, which are really nice. But
Aw.
how nice is it to know that when those kids, when you drive by, unless you hang out there now, I don't know, your kids seem to be a little bit older, but
Yeah, they're
every
in their
time you go
20s.
by, right, and you see someone enjoying that park, to know that you helped create that, that's got to be a great feeling.
That is how I feel. And when there are days when I'm having a bad day, I'll go down and take a look.
Hmm.
We should go
Because
on the swing. It's a lot of fun.
it's so much
It's
fun.
I Everywhere, anywhere we go. We had gone on a trip years back to Italy, and we went out for dinner, and there was a park, and I can't resist. I love a park. I like to take the kids to the park, and I love to go on the swing. And there's a joy you get when you're soaring through the air. It's a lot of fun. So that's a
I
nice gift that you gave.
I agree with you. It's a great feeling. And also food pantries always need help. They
Yes.
always need help.
Yes, that's true.
They need
And
help
donations.
stocking
Yeah,
donations, but also just bodies. They need people when they get the food to help stock it, to help sort it,
pocket. Yeah,
to put it together. There's so many. It's unbelievable how many food pantries there actually exist, and you can look online and find in your area where the food pantries are. They always need people, not just on the day they serve, but on the other
right.
day,
Every day, right?
every day, you know. And that's another good outlet. Like I said, it doesn't have to be limited to schools, and and go, figure out if there's something you don't like about your town. Not personalities. You can't change personalities. But
No,
also
no,
encourage people to run for something. It doesn't have to
right,
be anything big. School board doesn't get paid. But
right.
there's all sorts of things that you can do to really step up. And to me, it's the most rewarding thing I could do. And also it was a time when I wasn't working, so it really filled the gap in my employment history.
Yeah,
People
that's
are like, well,
great.
what did you do besides raising children, which is like everything. And it's like, well, actually,
Yeah.
I worked here, and it also led to jobs. I got a job at working in public relations at our library because the library director was on the recreation commission with me. And I was always doing press releases for free and getting articles done. And she said, I know you do this. We have an opening for a part-time job. Would you like
Nice.
to come work for us? And I got another job after that, same thing. They saw me, they met me. They're one of the donors at the dedication ceremony at the school playground. They needed a community person to come work for them. And I'd gone back to the library. They basically came to the library office and said, come work for us.
That is wonderful. And it's not like we're suggesting that people volunteer in order to receive back from it. But
No, that's
chances,
what,
Right.
yeah, chances are
uh,
pretty good when you put the good out into the universe, some kind of good will come back to you.
and that's what happens. It's not like I
Okay.
went and I was shocked when
Yeah.
when my fellow commission members said, "Hey, we have a part-time job at the library. You do this. You know, you want to come work for us." Shocked because that
Yeah.
was not the intent. Like you
Right.
said,
That wasn't the
it's
intent. Right.
it was just
Just
it was about filling the time and doing something meaningful and finding openings where I could do something meaningful. You know, and it was about, but the first step was starting that conversation to go in and talk to the town supervisor, who I was so blessed was so open.
yes.
Say,
That was amazing, really.
just, but he was that kind of a person. He was so good at what he did
Right.
because he saw people who stepped up and he said, "We need help. Come.
Right.
You want to
He
step
embraced
up?
it.
Here's the opening. Here's the path. Here's what you can do." You know, and I thank him to this day. I'm in touch with him to this day, and I thank him because he praises me for what I accomplished. I praise him for how he allowed me to accomplish it.
Right.
Oh,
Very nice.
that's great. Okay, well, that's really very informative. And you would encourage anybody to do some kind of volunteering.
When you have the time, when you have
Absolutely.
the opening, there's so many opportunities to volunteer, and every county
Yeah.
usually has a website that has the opportunities, and I do encourage people because it's never mind whether you get a job out of it.
Right.
Putting
That
that
shouldn't be
into
your
the
end goal.
world, helping out, making it an impactful difference in someone's life is the reward to itself. You know, people come after, I find out afterwards, somebody come up to me, "I want to thank you again for what you did tell me." And I forgot
Mm-hmm.
because it was never about counting who I was helping and how, and it was never about getting anything back. You know, the joy was really
Right.
in the service itself. You really feel good about yourself. You feel like you have an impact, you make a difference. You've done something to better the world. Everything else is just a bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you set a goal like that and then you accomplish it, you feel really good.
Oh, that's when
There's nothing better. Right.
no, because it was a measurable goal.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
measurable goal, and that's nobody there, there's lots of ups and downs and ebbs and flows in life, but the things that you accomplish, nobody can take that away from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And people always appreciate that you're willing to do it. And you're not getting, they know that you're not getting paid for it and you're not getting any kind of accolades or anything like that. You're doing it just for the pleasure of that accomplishment.
Well, when we were on the
Yeah.
school board, people thought we were getting paid because we were elected. I was
Ah,
like, no, we're not getting paid anything.
Right.
We're not getting paid a dime. No, 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 no. We're taking all the, all this negativity for nothing, but it's for the greater cause. And
Right.
I
Look what you
wasn't doing
accomplished.
it. I was doing it for an accomplishment. I was doing it because we had a new superintendent who needed help, and I'd been in the district along to know where the potholes were along the way and wanted to really help him be successful.
yeah. Yeah.
Nice. You're a
Yeah.
good person.
Yes. Very good
Thank
person.
you.
Yes.
Wow.
And
Thank you for joining us, really, and
Oh, no,
telling
it was,
everyone.
like I said, I apologize about the video, but it's such a pleasure to talk with the two of you. And Fran and I, like she said, we do go way back.
we do
Yeah, and
go.
you're from Brooklyn, so you're all good.
Yeah.
Me
Yes.
too.
Yeah. Three
Yeah.
Brooklynites. And I've known you
Yeah.
both about the same amount of time. I met Julann, I think, in 1977 or
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
wow.
And then
Yeah.
Wendy in the very early 80s.
Correct. When we
So,
were three.
yeah,
That's a long time.
two of my
Getting
oldest
older.
Yeah.
friends. And
No,
you're
well,
both,
we did shows together and we're very involved with the drama
Very
club at
nice.
Brooklyn College.
yeah.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
it's nice because Fran keeps us all, talk about a good person. Fran keeps us all connected.
She does. She does. That's
Fran
her
keeps
good deed. That's what she does for the world. One of the many things, but
Oh,
yes, a
well,
good
thank you.
one.
she keeps all of us connected and is there as just, besides being an amazing friend and always has been,
Oh,
but
well,
just is such a huge support to everyone and really, finds ways, like figures out what's going on with people and then follows up.
bless you both you're both like that too. So we're in this together.
That's
Yeah.
right.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of A Better World with Julann and Fran, and our wonderful guest today, Wendy McNamara, and we are signing off.